Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Mike Lugo. I'm the County Fire Marshal for Williamson County. I actually started here in January, so it's new for me here, at least at the county level, working Williamson County. I've traveled and done lots of vacations and stuff in this area, and it's a beautiful area. So that was one of my driving factors to come over here and put in for the position. Prior to this, I was a fire chief in League City. That's down there in between Galveston and Houston. So I was fire chief there for about three and a half years. And then I came up here to be county fire marshal. So with my office, we do have a lot of responsibilities and territory and requirements that we have either by state mandates or what county commissioners have adopted for us on what fires we have to go to and what types of investigations and stuff that deal with that. Like Bill said, he's our senior director over all of us in the emergency services department. And my, unit, it's a division within the entire organization. So you can see here, I'm right under Bill. All of us here are director levels, and he's our go-to for any needs and going to the higher levels of whatever we may need. For my division, here's the organizational chart that we currently have. I have 6 allotted positions currently for my division. I have Ron Cunningham, he's in the back talking with Bill. He's my assistant fire marshal. He's also considered my assistant chief. Then I also have Lionel Lopez. He's listed here right now as deputy fire marshal. However, he accepted yesterday a promotion to our hazmat captain. So that was good because I got to promote somebody within. That again helps with us, retaining our employees, giving them future for growth and expanding within the organization, so that's always a plus. Then I will have 2 vacant positions right now. I have a deputy chief over our hazmat program, and then now I'm going to need to hire a deputy fire marshal to fill Lionel's spot. So right now we're running lean. There's 3 of us currently working, trying to cover the entire Williamson County, 1,100 plus square miles. For 3 of us to do it's a feat in itself. And you'll see what types of responsibilities and stuff that we have for the county and why throughout strategic planning and talks and all that of why we need to have our voice to say we need more people to cover it properly, and you'll see why. So again, we have 6 allotted positions. The 6th person is my administrative assistant, Adrian. She's our rock, essentially. She's the go-to person that keeps us afloat. She was really the only one that was left after a reorganization shakeup before all of us got hired on. So basically my office starting from scratch and building it the way it needs to be and moving forward to protect our county. So Adrian's been with us for about 3.5 years. She helps me with the budget, purchasing, and especially the public information requests, because it seems like we get those daily and there's a lot of them. And the reason why is because the county's growing so much that developers, builders and all that need to know if there's been any fires, hazardous material spills, or anything that's been affected with that piece of property that they're looking at buying and developing. They put in a public information request with us to see if we had any responses of that nature there. If not, we just send them back a message, no responses there, and then they move forward with their building or negotiations past that. So again, it's a lot of them, and it's a lot of work just for that alone because we only have 8 days to get a response back. Part of the overall staffing includes our hazmat resources. The hazmat resources comprise of these fire departments, and each one of these departments provides some kind of resource. If it's either just personnel, they respond with 4 personnel on a fire truck to a hazmat scene with us, or the other ones that aren't listed as personnel, except for Round Rock, so Cedar Park, Georgetown, and Hutto, they each have one of our county trucks with trailer attached to it, and in those trailers we have a full list of equipment for hazardous materials responses. So basically any type of hazmat response that you could think of, we should be able to handle. If it's more than that or very complex type incident, we'll call Austin Fire Department to help us, and we'll merge together and take care of the situation. We also have about 10 other counties around us that we respond to as part of the capital area government requirement. If Austin has something major, they'll also call our hazmat team to go and assist them. So it's a benefit for everybody, not just Williamson County, for this type of response and resources. So for the Fire Marshal's office, for the entire Williamson County, all the areas shaded in red are our responsibility for providing fire code education, enforcement, which that means we do permit reviews, plan reviews for new structures or structures being renovated. We also do the fire inspections in these areas, and ultimately the fire investigations, which could be just fire, arson, or explosions. That's what we go and do in these areas. Of course, with the growth happening and all that, it's subject to change, where you'll see the red shaded areas where it's actually going to get a lot more for us for our responsibility on what we need to be doing. So again, right now we have allotted 5 people to cover all what you see, and it's about, I'm trying to get it narrowed down, but we're looking probably about 2,200 commercial occupancies that we have to inspect, and most of those require an annual inspection, so we have to go out there at least one time a year and do it. And on average, when we do inspections, they most likely require a re-inspection. Some require 2 or 3 re-inspections, but you can imagine 2,200 occupancies just to hit those one time, if we're even able to do that, much less try to go and do re-inspections to do it. So it is a challenge. It's something that we're working hard through. But for I know someone asked about job requirements coming out of high school and stuff like that. So I put in here what's all required really for becoming a fire marshal, deputy fire marshal, to be in the fire marshal's office. And to do that, of course, it's graduating from high school, but then you have to go to firefighter academy, and that generally takes 6 to 8 months to do that. Be hired on somewhere, work there for at least a couple years, because we require, I think it's a minimum 2 years firefighting experience, because throughout that experience, they get to respond to fires. They get to go put them out. They deal with that. But then it also comes with the education and being on the field for a while of understanding how the fire started, why it took so long to put it out, stuff like that, and seeing burn marks, and they get that through their firefighting experience. We also require an EMS certification. Currently, all of us in our office, we're all paramedics. Really, the minimum's just being an EMT, but coming from the fire departments, we're required to be paramedics at our fire department, so we're still paramedics. Also with that, we have to become fire investigator certified, fire inspector certified, plans examiner certified to review construction plans and fire alarm, fire sprinkler plans. We have to go to hazmat technician training school. That's an 80-hour class to actually be certified, because you cannot go to a hazmat scene and make entry and actually stop a leak, stop a spill, anything that has to do with hazardous materials without being a hazmat tech. So that's a mandatory thing. That's national standard to make entry, because these types of scenes are very, very dangerous, if you could think about it. They're on rail cars, they're on semis going down the highway. If these things spill or mix, it could be an explosion, it could be a toxic gas, it could be something bad. So we have to know the chemistry behind it. It's also required to be a hazardous materials incident commander to be able to run the scene, make sure everything's followed correctly, so no first responder gets injured or killed, or a civilian. And through that too, we also work with our EMS partners. So if we do have victims that are contaminated with the hazardous material, of telling them through our research what the chemical is, how we are going to decon, get as much of it off of them as we can before they're even allowed to get in the ambulance. So it's either spraying them down with tons of water there, whatever it is. EMS then gets them, EMS transport them to the hospital, and they notify the hospital, but then before they're allowed to go into the hospital, they set up a decon area outside, and they completely wash the patient again and double check, triple check to make sure they don't have any contaminants left on them before they go into the ER. And when they go to the ER, they're usually in an isolated wing or a unit, because you don't want to start contamination for the rest of the ER and shut down the hospital. So these are very complex, dangerous types of calls that we go on. TCOL, so that's the state licensing regulation commission for any peace officer in the state. For deputy fire marshal, I just made it a requirement that if we hire somebody that does not have that certification, they have to obtain it within 1 year. So we could still hire somebody that doesn't have it, but in a year it's going to be required, because it requires for all of my personnel to be on an on-call schedule. We have a rotating on-call, because if it is an arson or explosion, you have to be a peace officer to actually respond and collect the evidence, store the evidence, send it to the labs, and do all that type of stuff in order for us to get our search warrants, subpoenas, work with the district attorneys to file a case, and actually it's a criminal case, and follow that process. So with that, as peace officers, we have the authority, what the state gives any peace officer. We can pull people over for traffic violations, we can arrest people for stealing something from a store. Anything that you could see a sheriff or a police officer do, we can also do, because we have the same training, the same certification. But with that, coming into the fire marshal's office, it's fun messing with some of the police officers, because we say, hey, we're already detectives, where you have to wait so many years in the police field to become a detective. We're essentially a detective right off the bat, because we have to go investigate, how did this fire start? You know, was it accidental? Was it intentional? Anything like that? File the cases with the district attorneys. Usually police officers don't deal with that until they become a detective. Now that's a majority. So again, my office, we're triple certified: firefighter, police officer, and EMS. And that's a lot of schooling, education, experience to do that, where sheriffs, police, they only have to require the peace officer certification. But in addition, we have to go to numerous fire and arson training classes, because if we're going to try to convict somebody for an arson, we have to follow what's called the scientific method. So make sure it's data and factually based on, this is how it started, this is why it started, all that kind of stuff. So that way the DA has all the evidence and all the information they need to successfully convict somebody, and we don't put somebody in prison that didn't do it and didn't deserve to be in prison. So we have to make sure we're doing everything correctly. We also attend explosion investigation classes, because we respond to any types of explosions. It could be a bomb, it could be a gas leak, a propane leak. We responded a couple of weeks ago to Austin with that explosion. Ron and I were out there helping Travis County fire marshals. We did damage assessments there was like 26 houses that were damaged from that explosion. But then we also assisted with the scene, and I'll show you, I got it on my computer, I was going to show you 2 pictures of it, but we help with that kind of stuff to try to figure out what happened, because 2 people were critically injured from that explosion. We have to go to chemistry classes so we could stay up to date on the hazmat stuff. College degree, most of us, we either have a bachelor's or master's degree. In our office, we require associates to come in. So there is college classes that are recommended. And then again, many continuing education classes that we have to do. So for a state law requirement, the state actually says we shall investigate cause origin of fires that occur within the county. And then we have to determine whether a fire was a result of negligent, intentional conduct, or accidental. So that's state mandate. So anything in the county, unincorporated limits of the county, we have to actually go to and investigate. Also for responsibilities for us, like I touched, we put together the fire code amendments, the fire code that we're currently under, to follow what businesses have to follow as far as safety requirements in order to get a certificate of occupancy to actually operate their business. With that too, I recommend to the county judge when we need to enact a burn ban or lift a burn ban. This last Tuesday, I recommended lifting it because we did get some rain, and a matrix that I follow, a lot of those values came down to allow those that need to do the burns, but they have to follow TCEQ requirements to do it legally. Don't be surprised later this summer, another burn ban goes in effect. And I know those of you that might have land and burn and all that, it's not to keep that right away from you. It's just to make sure we're keeping our community safe, because without this, and when we have our red flag days, our fire weather danger days that are actually posted and sent out everywhere, those winds and all that are essentially what California dealt with, and we don't want that to spread and destruct and cause damage to houses. Because the sad thing is, if that happens on days that is no burn days because of that, and somebody does it, there could be criminal penalties for that. So they could get arrested for arson, for damaging or destroying someone's dwelling and stuff. So that's stuff that people really don't know or think about. I talked about the hazmat program. A lot of these types of responses that we can go on are chemical type spills. We respond to gases such as chlorine, ammonia, hydrogen fluoride. Hydrogen fluoride, the Samsung plant will have a ton of this. The bad thing about that, it's a calcium seeker, so if enough spills on your skin, calcium, your bones are made of calcium, so your bones and all that will disintegrate and does nasty stuff. So we have to figure out proper suits, how to contain it, how to clean it up, make sure nobody was contaminated. So there's that part of chemistry that we have to understand too. Of course, the biological responses, we go on calls that are classified as Center for Disease Control type responses. You know, it could be anthrax, Ebola, ricin, anything like that. That has happened here in the U.S., especially Ebola. We have to respond to those types of cases, make it safe, work with cleanup companies to make sure it's cleaned up and properly decontaminated, keep any of that biological stuff from spreading. And then, of course, the explosions, drug labs, nuclear, radiological type incidents we have to go on, and any chemical ones. So any terrorist type event, our hazmat team's going on. So I just wanted to share, make a visual for you, kind of wake everybody up in a way of two different types of fires that I responded to, just to show you. Walking into somebody's house you've never been to before, or a structure, and we always start from the unburned side. You'll see us take pictures of the entire outside of the house or commercial structure. We'll work inside the house or building where everything is unburned and go in a room. So if people are like, why are you going in my room? It's not even touched. Well, we have to document fire spread, smoke damage, anything like that. Then we end up to where the fire started, or where we think it started. So here, it was in the garage, and you could see this was sheetrock, and the damage that the fire did with the sheetrock. So it was cooking for a while to get that sheetrock to come like that. Well, here, what happened was this homeowner had 3 different types of lithium-ion battery chargers. He had DeWalt, Milwaukee, and Ryobi on a bench near the wall, and they all had their proper batteries on them, but one of them went into thermal runaway, and when that happened, it started superheating, and once it gets to that point, there's no stopping it, putting it out, and it essentially explodes with violent heat and damage, and it caught the garage on fire. I was able to determine 2 of the chargers because they were damaged, but I could still read which one was which, but the third one, I wasn't able to tell because it was so damaged, and I just left it because it's an accidental fire. The insurance company will send an insurance investigator, and then they look at it, and we'll take it to get x-rayed and see if it's that one that failed. If it is, then they sue that company to recoup their money that they're paying to fix the damage. That's how the insurance process works. And this one was a cooking fire. The homeowner, she put oil in that pan and had it warming up to start cooking, and then left with her husband to drop her kid off at school, forgot about it, and the oil reached its ignition temperature, caught on fire, which ultimately spread to the microwave, which was hanging right here, and the cabinets, and started spreading the cabinets up to the ceiling. The daughter was home, thankfully, because she was able to call 911, get them there in time, but I still had to take all this off, inspect the microwave, make sure it wasn't something the microwave did, or put something in there, check the stove, everything here to make sure it wasn't intentional and they left to go somewhere, and because that happens. But you'll see it's all cleaned off later, look at it and leave it all in place, because if you all ever have a fire at your place and we go, we're going to tell you everyone will have to stay outside till we're done investigating. You have to fill out a report on what happened, where you were, stuff like that. We'll investigate it, but then if it's an accidental fire, we'll tell you just leave everything the way it is. Don't touch it, don't clean it, don't do anything. Just leave it alone, because the insurance will now send an adjuster to go look at it and an investigator, because their insurance investigator, again, needs to figure out which device or what happened, what started it, to possibly sue one of those manufacturers to get their money back, to pay for the damage. And if any of that's disturbed, cleaned, removed, they can't do that, so then that will start affecting your claim and possibly not cover it because they can't figure that out. So, and that's it. I think I talked a lot. Hopefully I didn't put you all to sleep. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, what happened with that thing over at the explosion in your house? Because we heard what the news said, we want to hear what you got to say.
Well, I figured you're all going to ask that, but
All right.
truthfully, I can tell you what I think. It's not what the case is, because we're not the primary investigator. We just went there to help. But the Travis County Fire Marshal already said it was a propane leak. I believe that's what it was. However, it took a lot of propane to fill that entire structure up. Now, mind you, those people weren't going to move in for 2 weeks. It was a brand new house. They're about to move in 2 weeks. And something happened where there was a leak somewhere, or stove left on something, where it filled it up enough, because he was out there mowing when this happened. And then when he went in, I think the house was filled with enough propane where it was too rich to light off. If you were in there with a lighter at that time, nothing would happen because there was so much propane. But when he went in, he let enough oxygen in to now get it to the explosion limit. So it could have been he hit a light switch, he walked, and you sometimes do that static electricity, shocking somebody yourself, anything could have been one of those triggers where it finally blew it up. And again, it was enough propane to destroy the house next to them and plus 26 other houses. So that's what it was. We just don't know what actually was the ignition source. And he's in really bad critical condition, so I don't know if they'll ever be able to interview him to say, what did you touch, what did you do? So, yes, ma'am?
I didn't see it on your slide, but do you still oversee pools, inspect pools as far as like in muds? Because I know a couple of years ago we had to get the fire marshal from Williamson County to sign off on our pools.
I don't know that answer.
Was it a construction issue?
The what?
The health district used to do pool inspections.
Yeah, well, it used to be, I think, at the state, but I think like several years ago it moved to the fire marshal.
They might have went to look at the maybe gates and security for children.
So you still do the gates then?
If that's what they did, yes, because then that would be in the fire code, because the fire code hadn't changed since the office started. So,
When we do apartments, we look at the gates and we look at the emergency calls.
Yeah, it's just neighbors, not apartments.
but EMS could tell you there's
Okay.
a lot of concerns for children drownings and stuff. In League City, it was sad. I had about average 6 to 8 children drowning that actually occurred at pools because left unattended or the child got out somehow and went to the pool. So that's why we always recommend security around there, an alarm that opens. When you open your door, it lets alarm and let you know. But
Any other questions?
Are the insurance company investigators fire marshals?
they're not fire marshals, but they are internationally certified as fire investigators. Yep. They have to be, because when they actually have to go to civil court when they're doing the lawsuits and all that stuff and defend. This is their scientific process, how they came up to this conclusion. If not, they won't be an expert witness and they're losing bad.
Y'all have so much expertise, I'm hoping that they would be.
And you'll see a majority of the time, fire marshals will retire, go into the private sector because they pay a lot more, but, yes, ma'am?
So you have to determine immediately if this is a nefarious act or if it's an accidental, because you can't take the evidence away.
We can.
Like you said, you had to leave that one battery thing there because the insurance person would come in.
Yes.
So you would have to know that they're covered by insurance and that you didn't think it was.
Correct, yeah. And there could be different ways of talking to them, what they were doing, trying to get quick explanation.
You have to decide right pretty quickly.
Yes. Yep. And if I have any doubt, I'll just collect it, let the insurance investigator know. We have it in our evidence room. Yep. Yes, ma'am?
The fire marshal ever have to pull a gun on somebody?
Not since I've been here. It could happen. I mean, the cases that we deal with arson-wise, they're felony cases. They're first-degree felonies, especially if it's an arson of a habitation. So we're not dealing with the nicest people when that happens. So it could be a possibility. It could be we're assisting sheriffs or police on a dangerous situation. It could be a bank robbery. It could be officer-involved shooting, something, but we haven't yet.
We watch a lot of Chicago Fire, and I was just telling him, I was like, Severide always fighting, so he probably.
Gotta love TV shows, right? I wish I had all their tools too. Yes, ma'am?
I just wondered what degree you considered appropriate when you talk about wanting to have a certain degree.
So when I put on their fire-related or related field, it could be EMS, criminal justice, fire science degree. It could be a biology degree because that would really help us, especially chemistry-wise and all that for hazmat. So anything like that, if it's like communications or, basket weaving, probably not.
I didn't know if structural engineering became part of it because of the way buildings
Oh, yeah,
respond.
absolutely. Because
Civil engineering.
a lot of our job is the code enforcement and plan review stuff, so yeah, that would be nice. Yes, sir?
Do y'all get involved with pre-planning, like on buildings before, as far as fire suppression, smoke dampers and stuff like that, when the building plans are being approved, or?
Yes, sir. Yep. Lionel, who I was telling you about, he attends some of the development review committees, and that's where they go in. They'll present what they're wanting to do, what county requirements are there. We'll tell them ahead of time before they develop plans and stuff, and then we'll review plans, and if they haven't met code, we'll tell them what's needed, especially with the water system that's out here. There's a lot of stringent requirements because how the current water system is, so.
I know smoke dampers on commercial buildings are just,
Yeah.
it's all over the,
Oh, yeah. Yep.
that's where you get the second or third time back.
Yeah, but we have a timeline that we have to do that, and if we don't meet that timeline, it automatically gets accepted. So we do our darndest to make sure we get it in time to make those requirements, because overall it's to keep everybody safe. So we don't want to miss that opportunity.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.